Hey everybody, how you doing today? My name's Tim and welcome to Bros Who Know Stuff. Today what we're going to do is we're going to put the sports SUV tent on the back of my Jeep JL Rubicon, and I recently was down in Moab and I used it and I put it up. I have some information that I think will help you out as far as a solo camper, how to put it up by yourself. And also down in Moab it was pretty hot and there were a few things that can tell you that helped me bear the weather, as far as the wind and also the constant sun down in Moab that basically just it can bake you if you don't do it right. So the other thing is also putting it up. In the back of the Jeep you have that swing door that comes out, and if you have a tire, there's an easier way to put it up by yourself. Let me show you how I do that. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to find a position at the campsite where I'm going to consider the sun, where the sun rises and where the sun sets, as far as direction of that sun hitting your tent in your Jeep. The other thing I want to make sure is I have a level ground. When you move your Jeep around at your campsite, pick a level spot for your Jeep too, because if you're sleeping inside your Jeep, sometimes you have to move from your tent into the Jeep, and you just want a level ground. You don't want to be waking up in the morning and next thing you find yourself basically on the side of the Jeep in a hole, which I've done before. So let's get out the ground cloth and lay that down. So I have my Jeep JL here. It's parked on gravel, and then I have kind of like a mixed grassy gravel area right here. So we're gonna put the tent right in here. When I travel, I have a trasher rig, and I keep the ground tarp on the inside. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the tarp and position it wherever you park your Jeep. You say you level your Jeep, and then after you level the Jeep, you go, okay, I'm not going to move my Jeep. Put your tent up first and then connect the connector to the Jeep later. That way you don't have to move the Jeep, and you got to be careful with these tents. You don't want to start your vehicle and then your muffler is really hot, and then later on you find out that you wrap the connector, the lower portion, around that muffler, and you burn something or maybe even start a fire. So that's a consideration. I always get the Jeep in position first, and then I turn the engine off, and then I put my tent up first, and then after I put the tent up, then I move the tent around and then put the adapter on the back of the Jeep. So the first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to put a tarp down. So when I travel, I keep my tent up here in our room case. So with the tent, you're going to get 4 black heavy-duty metal poles, and then you're going to get 4, these are more of a heavy-duty fiberglass pole right here. The gray ones are the ones that you're going to be putting into the very top holder of the tent, and then the black poles have 3 sections to them. Basically, these form the roof, and then these basically push up the roof and hold the sides of the tent together. This is the gray pole right here, and you'll see on a close-up that that is a cord. It's like a bungee cord, black poles that support the roof. Giving you an example here, this is where the connectors meet, and you can see there's a flexible cushion built inside the pole. Those wires do not move. They're locked into a device, probably a cord. So it goes in just like this. And then each section of the black pole has 2 of these. So this is one of the gray poles. The gray poles, there's 4 of them, and they're just open on both ends. And in the middle, if you open it up, this is definitely a heavy-duty fiberglass pole. Then you have this little cord that's in there, and that cord flexes. And so that's what you have on each of the 4 gray poles. And these are the roof poles. They make the top of the roof. So then you have the black pole. There's 4 black poles, and on each black pole you have one of the ends is pointed. Okay, so you got a little pointed end, and this goes into a grommet that's built into each 4 corner of the tent. And then you have an open end on the opposite side of the pole, And this goes up into the adapter. It's kind of like a connector where the gray and the black poles, it's an elbow basically. It's a rooftop elbow connector. So once you get your tent out, one of the first things you're going to want to do, find the piece that goes and latches over the rear end of your vehicle and position that so it's directed towards your vehicle. And it'll be a gray piece. The fabric will be gray. So you're looking for the gray with all the straps on it. There's these Velcro straps with connectors on them. So that's going to be going towards the rear of your vehicle. Then all you need to do is find the first corners. So here's one corner. It's got a grommet on it.
You have these grommets on the end that are connected to the edges right here. So these guys right here, on each corner, here's the other corner.
And then I'm going to find the fourth corner, third corner, another corner. So that's got a grommet. And then another grommet over here on this end. And you can see that 8 feet across is from side to side. Perfectly covers the underside of the tent. And then I'll just pull it forward. Now, if you were to look at the center piece and just take your eyes and go down the blue sleeve, at the very end of it, you're going to see this other piece of plastic here. And this is the elbow. And this elbow connects the gray pole to the black pole. And one thing I'll point out here is that on one end of this elbow, you're going to have these little ridges on the inside. The gray poles go into that side. And then these big opened without the ribs, the black poles go into this side. So once you have a gray pole and it's in the sleeve, just feed it up, connect it to the center dome, and then come back down here on the other end where you have this elbow. And remember, you want to find the elbow portion where they have the ribs, and the ribs go into the gray pole. And so that's pole number 1. And you find your next pole, put it together. The top of the dome of the tent is going to start to stretch out, and it's going to be a little bit more, you'll find more tension on the top portion of the dome. So you find that elbow again. There it is. And then what you do, you can see now that you can see how it pops up, and then find that ribbed portion of the elbow. So now you have this like a dome effect, right? So that's exactly what you want. So yeah, and now what we're going to do is we're going to get the black poles and put the black poles together. So in each of the corners you have these little buckles that you're going to use later for the rain tarp. The poles go into that portion right there. The pointy part of the black pole, there's 4 black poles, and there's 4 of these guys in each corner of the tent. Okay, when you put the black poles up, there's no one way to do it. There's multiple ways. The way I do it, I put the Jeep where I want the Jeep as far as the sun direction and stuff like that. And then once I get the tent up, then I move the tent over next to the Jeep, and then I put the sleeve on. So putting the black pole, you're going to notice again that there's a spike on one end, and then there's an open on the other side of the pole. So pretty simple. Again, find that elbow. And if you have the wind going like it is right now at your campground, it might make it a little difficult, but not really. So what I do is I take my foot and I step on the corner here, being careful not to break the buckle there. You don't want to step on that buckle
and then break that because you need that. And then just bend, and then there you have one pull. So that's in. And then what I do is I just steady the tent as I move over to the other corner. And usually I have the poles put together.
So here I put 2 of the tent poles up on that side over there, and then this is where the sleeve is right here. And so now I'm going to put the 2 black poles, support poles, in this corner and in this corner. Okay, again what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pole, pop it in the sleeve here, and then I'm going to get this corner here of the tent, stretch it out a little bit. Then I'm going to again push up, and I'm going to put my foot carefully without damaging the buckle clip, and then I'm going to hold the middle pole, black pole, and then the bottom pole, again pushing that direction, which makes it a lot easier. And then I'm going to get it right in that grommet. So voila, 3 poles. Now I go for further pole. The tent is up, but I don't have any of the corners pegged in. What I'm trying to do here is, here's the side of the tent right there. Here's your sleeve, and you can see that that sleeve is quite a bit over, going off the rear of the Jeep. And so what I do is I take the corner here and I move the corner towards the Jeep. So this pole right here is going to be closer to the Jeep, which is going to slide the sleeve corner, the side here, closer to the Jeep. And that looks good to me. So I'm going to go on the inside, and this is what I do. So I have the door open. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip the door to the sleeve where it's going to connect to your vehicle. So you have the zipper, and you just zip that all the way down. Voila. So here's your sleeve, and then I'm going to take the open door flap and just kind of roll it up so that I don't step on it. You want to protect your tent. You know, it's kind of like, so you can see that I have positioned it such that if I open the back door, and again, the Jeeps have the tires, so when I swing it open right now, that this pole on this corner, this pole is not, you know, like pegged down. So I'm going to push it out a little bit, reach, and so I would say that is definitely where it would be positioned if I were to peg. So one thing you want to make sure is that when you open your door, there's this door edge right here, and you don't want to put a lot of pressure on that. And you can see on the inside, this flap right here is going to come up, and there's a connector right there that you connect a piece of strap that is going to hold this edge up. So this edge right here is, I think, perfect right along the back of the bumper there. And then the door, you look at the back of the door of the Jeep, over on the corner here, you'll see that there's a good clearance right now. Okay, and I have, let's back up so you can take a look at the angle of the door there. So it's not all the way open. So if I were to open it where I would want to work on it, that would be perfect right there. So you just want to be careful that, you know, if you've got something like this, you want to make sure that the tent has room. Nothing's going to rip or tear. And then you'll see down here that there's plenty of room there. You'll see that when I raise the flap up,
that flap is actually going to be right up against the bumper. So I think that's a really good position for the tent on the Jeep right there. As you can see, here's the sky openings. This is mesh right here. The one right there, you would have to put a rain tarp up to keep rain from coming through there. One thing I did do before I even used this tent is I went and got some seam protector, and I did all the seams on the inside all the way around, and I did all the seams also on the outside, and just as an additive. So there is your other door right here, and that would be orienting you to, that would be the left. And then this one over here, that is just a opening, that's not a door. To the right of the rear of the Jeep, stand looking at the rear. The right side is just an opening. There's a fly, and then there's also a door, a window there. And then here is the door. So that is to the left of the rear of the Jeep. And then your main door is right here, straight out the back of your Jeep. I highly recommend getting some tent pegs that are metal. These are Snow Peak tent pegs. They're not going to come out of the ground. They have some really great hooks right there. So anyway, I'm going to take these. I'm going to put 4 of these tent pegs in the 4 corners of the tent right now. When I'm putting the tent peg in, I just want to look down and make sure that I'm putting a little tension on the tent, but I don't want to over tension it. As you can see, the wind is blowing up against the tent here. Go around and make adjustments. So you can see that it's placed in right there, but I can also move the pole out a little bit. So I think I'll do that. I'll just work on that and move that out. This right here is the sleeve. The sleeve is going to go over your vehicle. And on this, you're going to have these. There's going to be a male connector, okay? And then there's also going to be a female connector, and I'll show you how to use those. And then again, over on the right, you have a female connector and a male connector on these webbings, okay, these clips. So this, as you notice, you'll see here that these are on the top, and they're also positioned equally apart as far as the sleeve. And what you connect to these are the straps that you're going to put over your vehicle, on top of your vehicle, and then latch it down so that this portion of the sleeve, the top part, is going to go over your vehicle and stay there. And underneath, you can see that this is a door. So like if you want to leave your tent at your tent base and you want to go, all you have to do is unhook everything, then that'll come down, and then you're good to go. And if you have a rain tarp over this, then you put your rain tarp, and that'll give you a little bit more security when you leave your campsite. So for the top of the sleeve, there are 2 straps, and you're going to have a female connector, and it's going to have a big long piece of webbing. And then on the end of it, you're going to have a choice. You have this bungee cord that's connected to the loop at the other end, and you also have this little hook. So you can use both of them. You can use the hook, and you can also use the bungee cord and connect both of them. So what you're looking at here are 3 straps. They're identical. This is for the inside of the tent on the sleeve, and there is a buckle right there. There's a buckle right there, and there's also a buckle over there. These guys go to those guys. Pop these. You just take this, and for example, you can just pop this right in the lower part of the sleeve, and then what you do is you just find a position where you like to hook this. The purpose of all 3 of those is to raise the sleeve up there. One of the first straps I put on at the rear on the sleeve is this strap that has a hook, and that hook I just put right there, which clips to the inside of the wheel right there. So then I go to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm here on the passenger side on the rear, and This is looking in past the sleeve, and here you have you can just see the back door right there. There's the tire, and it's looking pretty good, the inside of the tent. And so you have this, you've got this waistband here, as you can see, this right here, and that kind of cinches it up a little bit. Then I have the sleeve just up to the top, and I have a front runner roof rack, and you'll see that there's a footing here, and I can only get the sleeve up so far. And I'll show you what I have built to help keep the rain from flowing down into the top, and I'll show you later. I also have a video out on that. But then down here, what I do is I come to the other side. I've got the other side already fastened in, and then you'll see that there's the muffler. That's why you don't want a hot muffler, and you don't want to put the sleeve, you know, under the muffler. Keep the sleeve, that black sleeve, the lower portion of it, keep that above that muffler right there. So the muffler's cold, and then on this side, again, you have this little hook here. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it down here on the wheel. You can put it anywhere on the vehicle that you have, but on the Rubicon that I have, I've found that that is actually the best place. And then the other thing is, it won't come off in high winds and thunderstorms. I proved the fact when I was down in Moab on my recent trip. So you can tighten it by adjusting this right here. But for now, when you're first starting to set up your tent, I'd suggest just to keep this loose until you have everything where you want it. Each individual is going to have, or each group, as far as your vehicle, is going to have a different configuration as far as, do you have a rooftop tent or do you not have one? The slope of your roof at the rear and stuff like that. So one recommendation would be to, when you come to your campsite, would be to level out the Jeep, put a little spacer underneath both the rear tires. That way it would arch your vehicle, the plane, forward so the rain actually flows to the front of your vehicle. In my situation, what I've done is, I have a video that I made and it shows that I use this pull tube, or whatever they call it, but I put this in the back of my Jeep, and I put it between the footer on this side. It goes all the way across, because what it does is there's these ribs, one here, but there's this lower section right here, and the water can flow this way and then down into the back of your Jeep. When I'm putting up the sleeve on the top of the Jeep, you can see here that I have only a certain distance that I can bring it up to. But what I've learned is that I take the waistband and I put it right up against this little drain spot right here on the top of the sleeve. Female, there's one here, and then there's one over there. And that is where you're going to be putting in these two long latches. So one's going to go right there, one's going to go right there. This is the rain tarp, and you're going to find, get rid of that rug. You're going to find that there's a door section on this. You just got to find it. So let me show you here. What you want to do is you just kind of want to walk it up and over. So one way you could do this is, and I'm just taking it and I'm bringing it around the right side. And then I know that this is going to be the corner right here. So I just grab it with my right hand, and then I'm going to climb up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm just going to, the cord that I have, I'm going to tie it through my roof rack here just to hang it here momentarily. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So let me get this string through here, and so I'm going to leave that there. Do a 5/8 maneuver there. Okay, so I know that this corner is going to be here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm going to bring this around, just like feeding my hands through the edges.
Then carefully I'm going to loop it over. I got it up. So you'll see here again that I mentioned earlier, there's this there's a female and male adapter here on the clips. And so you just pop that right in there. Okay. And then that's got a strap, and then that holds the corner of the rain tarp, and then you have a little bit of a strip here with some Velcro, and that just keeps this lower portion secured around the bottom. And so, you know, what I do right now is I just keep that string that I tied up there just to hold that up momentarily, and then I come over here and I did the same thing in this corner. And then what I'm going to do is come over here, and I want to make sure that the top here is properly positioned. So all the corners are snug. So that's clipped in, the other one over there is clipped in, and that one's clipped in, and then we have this one's clipped in. And this right here is the last portion that I want. So underneath, you can feel that there's an elbow right here. This is the gray pole, that's the black pole, and there's that plastic elbow. So one thing is you can manipulate the tent. You can push on the black pole a little bit, and then you can bring it down and position this corner right here, right over this elbow, and that'll protect the tent. Rain tarp. Okay, so just there's a seam here, there's a seam here, one running down here, the connection right here, and that's where the rope's going to be pulling down when you have it pegged into the ground. So if this were up here, this corner, then it would not be a perfect fit. You want this to fit well. So just go around to each of the corners and make sure that you have the same configuration, the placement, and then you have your tie down cord right there, and you're good to go. I have the rain tarp up. I'm not going to put these, you know, cinch these down. And also you have these little paracords down here and one over there that you can take some tent pegs and pull back. It'll really make this flap and all the flaps pretty firm. And as you can see, there's no door or anything like that right there. If you take and put it on, I highly suggest that you do put a tent peg. Take a tent peg and put one on, put one there, and put one over there, and stretch the bottom out. That way wind can get underneath and then through the opening on the inside of the tent. I've experienced that when I was down in Moab recently. And then over here you have, this would be your front door. And let me show you here. This is also your awning for your shade. So if you wanted to, if you had a couple of tent pegs, and there's a little piece of Velcro over here that you have to unsnap. Goes up and you run into another piece of Velcro. Unsnap that. And then it goes all the way up. And I highly suggest that if you use this as a shade leaf, you know, and you put a tent peg right here, make sure that the zipper goes all the way to the top. You don't want to put this straight out, you know, and have it, you know, for shade. And then the wind's going to come along, and if it puts pressure like it did for me when I was down in Moab, if you half zip this, or if you take the zipper and only run it up to say here, that puts a lot of tension on your zipper, and it could actually destroy the thread of the zipper. So run your zipper all the way up just to be safe. So here's one, same thing on the other side. Then unzip it. Now with the rain flap, you can take the rain flap, put it up there, cinch it up, and then you can take and bring this all the way up, making sure when you're ever near your tent, you want to make sure that your foot is actually underneath if you're close to the edge of the base of your tent. So you have your door here, and then if I zip it down,
And then I want to open it up to let some air in. There's an inner door flap. And then now you just have the netting right here. You got some mesh netting, very fine. And then you can look out and it keeps the bugs out and stuff like that. Over and be careful to when you're stepping out, not to clip the edge. It's like somebody I know. And yeah, so this is your one door here. So you have another door, and this is on the driver's side. So same thing. This is the rain tarp again. You'll big door. So you have a door over there, a door here, and then on the other side you just have a portion where you can open it. So that side right there is not a door, and that is the passenger side, but that can open up. So at the back of the Jeep, I have the sleeve is totally unconnected. You can see here, I've got the window and the door closed. Make sure all the straps are free from the vehicle. And then you have the, right here, I've undone the door. So the door right now is loose. I take my straps that, I just take those off. You don't have to. And then one thing you can do is just go around, make sure everything is loose. This down, I don't close it yet. That way there's a lot of freedom back here, especially when I have a trasher reel in the back. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the Jeep up, and then I'm going to move the Jeep forward. Before you move your Jeep forward, one thing you want to do is just do a safety check. Walk around the back of the tent, okay, where the sleeve is, where it connects. Just make sure everything is disconnected, kind of, you know, push up against the sleeve there. And do the same thing on that side. I'll be honest, I left a piece of rope attached to the rooftop tent up there, and I walked around and I saw it attached, so if I would have pulled forward, something bad would happen. So yeah, just do a safety check, and yep. And then you'll see how close. Here's the Jeep muffler, and that's how close it gets. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop in the Jeep, I'm going to start it, and I'm going to move the Jeep forward, and then I'm going to turn the Jeep off. All right, that's how we do it. So when you pack it up, and fold it up, one thing is that this is a little weighty area right in here. This is Cordura. This is kind of a heavy-duty material right here on this end, and then also on this end. So you're going to feel this weight when you're rolling the tent back up. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take the rain tarp off and just fold the tent up and then put it back in the room case. I hope you got something out of the video. It's a good tent. I definitely would recommend it. So give us a like, a subscribe to help the channel out if you would, if you got anything out of it. And thank you for showing up, and stay tuned for the next video. Cool.